So this past week, voters in Kansas kept their state constitution as rejecting an amendment that would have removed the right to abortion. It triggered this response that day on social media from Democratic gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams, pledging to make it safe and legal to have abortions in Georgia. It was a point which was readdressed to Abrams this morning by Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press.
You put legislation around that by returning to what we know was the structural framework of Roe v. Wade. You do it by not setting arbitrary gestational limits, because we know that those rarely actually reflect medical decision making. This is a medical decision. And when we give it back to doctors, when we tell women and their doctors to make these choices, what we are saying is we respect the responsibility that women have and the obligation that doctors have, but that politicians are not scientists, and that we should not be setting into law these moving targets that do not reflect the reality that women face when they're sitting in that doctor's office.
So we did receive a comment tonight from Governor Kemp's campaign to Abrams' remarks, and it attempted to frame it in this way, that Abrams to President Biden's economic policies, while touting Governor Kemp's record on economic relief, passing an income tax cut and suspending the state's gas tax. Abrams making her abortion pledge in part because neither the state assembly or the state Senate have a Republican supermajority, which just could override a governor's veto. However, 11 Alive political analyst Dr. Andra Gillespie also says state conservative lawmakers could look to strengthen Georgia's heartbeat law, which bans abortion 6 weeks after conception.
I think that there are some legislators in the state who would be undeterred by the vote in Kansas, who would still try to put forward bills that are going to propose an outright ban. So I don't think we should be surprised if we see that type of legislation being filed.
Tomorrow, a hearing is set for an emergency motion on a lawsuit seeking to halt Georgia's heartbeat abortion law. The ACLU and doctors filed the lawsuit, saying the law violates the state constitution. It went into effect shortly after the Supreme Court of the United States overturned Roe v. Wade. Professor Anthony Kreese with Georgia State University telling 11 Alive what happened in Kansas could be seen as a possible roadmap for Georgia's battle over abortion.
Every state constitutional tradition is independent of each other. So what happened in Kansas isn't necessarily controlling in any way, shape, or form of what happens here in Georgia. But I think it's undeniable that that kind of development will be key in the minds of people here in Georgia as that litigation unfolds. And it certainly will probably be cited in terms of the litigation going forward as persuasive precedent for the Georgia courts to consider.
We will have details on that hearing on Georgia's heartbeat law tomorrow right here on 11 Alive.